It was always one thing or the other with being a driver in this busy city. One could either have a very bad customer who would end up ruining the day, or car issues that were not even foreseen. But on better days, some customers just end up making one happy. One of those customers would be Layla. The very first day I met her, she was charming, attractive, with a good sense of humor. Everything about her had the perfect or almost perfect mark on them. Consequently, like it was fate, I became her driver twice in a week. It was the highlight of my week. Just seeing her walk into the car gave me sparks that I didn't even know existed inside of me. "Hi, Layla," I greeted as soon as she got into the car. It's been about a month since I met her, and figuring out about a week ago that I probably developed feelings for her made it difficult to contain myself each time our eyes met. "Hey, Harris. How are you this morning? I missed you." Her sweet, candy-like voice was one of the perks to knowing a Layla, knowing this Layla. I summoned all courage to tell her how I was feeling. I secretly hoped she would say yes. It would be a lot easier and less awkward for both of us. As I drive, I watched her smile at me from the mirror. Oh, that smile. Everything about her was heavenly. "Layla?" "Yeah?" "I hope this does not get weird, but I'll go straight to the point. I think I'm in love with you. I just can't imagine not seeing you in 1 week. Look at it. This is fate bringing us together." "Why did it take you so long to ask this? I've been waiting since forever." Her reply was not what I was expecting, but it was the best kind of reply I hoped for. "Would you be my girlfriend?" "Yeah, duh. I would not want it any other way." It was done. I had a pretty and sweet girlfriend. Weeks passed and things were going on smoothly. Layla was as sweet as ever, and driving different customers with different attitudes was becoming easier because I had something I could look forward to by the end of the day. Layla. I was deeply in love with her. She knew this, and I hoped she felt the same way. My phone beeped, signaling that I had a request to go pick up someone, but it was going to be my girlfriend first. Layla had been borrowing my car for days now. She refused to tell me why, so how do I assume it was something personal? I trusted her enough with my car, although I couldn't help but think about what she needed the car for, 4 times a week. It was becoming harder to not get suspicious. If she was involved in anything shady with my car, the police would arrest me because I was the owner of the car. I drove to her apartment, hoping to find out what she really did with the car. I parked, calling her out through the phone. She looked as beautiful as ever. "Hey, baby," she greeted as she approached me with her mouth pouted, leaning in for a kiss. "Hey, my love, the car is ready. You told me you were in a rush." I handed the keys to her and she hopped in and drove off. Immediately, as she drove off, I called in the Uber that I ordered to follow her. If she didn't want me to know what it was she did with my car, I'd figure it out myself. Many turns and bumps before she parked under a tree. I saw her walk towards a figure. The figure had been under the tree before she arrived in that location. As the figure came into light, I saw a man about my age. He had this fierce look on his way, which immediately turned into a smile when he sighted Layla. As she got closer to him, there was a tension that built in me. What could she want from such a guy? My question didn't need to stand for so long before it got answered. I saw them kissing, and it was obvious that I had been stupid all along. She had just been using me for my car because of another guy. I watched as Layla walked into a small building while the guy drove off in my car. My car, now a shared commodity. As my driver drove back, I thought of several things to do. My business was going down because of my car, which I can't possibly use frequently because of a lying girlfriend. Should I confront her? There was no way I misunderstood the situation. My heart was still breaking to see her in another guy's arms. I trusted Layla. How could she hurt me so bad? I wanted to be sure of what I saw and didn't mention anything to Layla. Instead, I followed her 3 different times and it was the same thing. She met the same guy, kissed him before exchanging my own car between the 2 of them. As I realized that I was slowly losing the job and that was the only way I could provide for myself, I decided to act on the fact that my loyalty and trust were taken for granted. I had already decided what needed to be done. Whatever we had was about to go down the drain, and I didn't care anymore. It was what she deserved. If I remembered correctly, it was a Friday. I met Layla for a cup of coffee together, and she looked different to me. Now that I knew what she had been up to, she was not the angel that I thought she was. I smiled at her, and she smiled back at me. Just as she finished her coffee, I handed her the keys. The usual lending of the car to Layla happened that day, but not with the usual heart that used to give it willingly. I hugged her before she went off. I didn't mean for a kiss. I had no desire to kiss a liar. She didn't complain about the kiss. She probably barely noticed. It was obvious that it was already over between us before it would become finally over. "You will be soon famous, babe," I thought in my mind, and waved at her as she drove off. "Hello?" the voice said as the person picked up the phone. "Hi, I would like to report the case of a stolen car." "Don't worry, share your car details and we will help you," said the cop. The next day, as I was having my morning cup of coffee, I switched on the TV and there she was. Layla and her boyfriend had been caught with drugs in my car. Layla's toxicology test suggested drugs in her blood. They both had been put behind bars. I drank my coffee and smiled. The plan to spike Layla's coffee had worked like a charm. The police did question me later and asked of my relationship with Layla. However, there wasn't much meat in the charges pressed by Layla against me. Needless to say, the whole incident has turned me into a cynical person. But the good part is that I will be very careful the next time I fall for someone.
We all tend to be nice. I certainly said something along the lines of, "If you need anything at all, call me," or something like that. It's something that we all say when the situation calls for it. But 99% of the time, we really don't mean it. Let me tell you about what happened to me about 2 years ago when I tried to be nice to someone. And I don't want to advise you guys that you shouldn't help out here or there. But, well, just be careful. Anyway, it was a Sunday afternoon. Since I own my own company, I usually work during the weekends also. It's a hard grind, but by doing so, I managed to make my business grow significantly, and that, in return, made me live a life that not many people could afford. I don't want to brag and say that I'm rich, but I do pretty well for myself. Moving on with the story. As I was saying, it was a Sunday afternoon. I just finished a project that I've been doing for a client, and I needed some time to relax. That day specifically, I felt the need to take a walk in Central Park, but I live pretty far off, so instead of taking out my own car, I thought of calling an Uber. The app showed that the car will be arriving in a couple of minutes, so I grabbed my shoes, my phone, and my wallet and went in front of my building. The street was busy, even though it was a Sunday. Everyone was rushing all over the place in typical New York City fashion. Finally, my Uber arrived and I hopped to the back. To my surprise, my driver for the day was a woman, about 40 years old. She had beautiful hair and a warm smile. We started to talk and she said that she recently started doing this. She was born in another city but moved to the Big Apple so that she could make a name for herself. She always wanted to be in show business, but you know how life goes. It has other plans for you. Since there was traffic that day, we had a chance to talk for some time, more than the typical chit-chat I make with other drivers. Her name was Cindy. She told me she was a single woman of 2 little girls. One was 10 years old and the other one was 12. They loved to read and to draw, and she told me that they were really talented. Cindy also showed me some pictures of them. I didn't think they looked like her at all, and I pointed out that they must resemble her husband. When I said that, she went quiet for a couple of seconds. I got worried since the long pause was making things uncomfortable. I'm sorry, did I say something wrong?" I asked her with a worried look on my face. "No, don't worry. I'm sorry, but I get a little emotional when someone brings up this subject," she told me. I apologized again. Cindy told me her husband had died in a terrible car accident right after her second daughter was born. He used to be a fireman, and they were deeply in love. "We were the perfect family, just like the ones you would see in the movies. But since he passed, Cindy told me while holding in her tears. Cindy continued saying that since her husband passed away, she's been struggling to keep her girls in school and buy them everything that they would ever need. It was such a sad story. I also found out that she worked a couple more jobs. She was a waitress at a diner and also worked as a part-time phone operator for some company. The woman had a very hard time making sure that her girls would have everything they would need. Soon after she told me everything, we arrived at my destination. Because of everything that went on during our ride, I decided to help her out a bit more, and besides the money I owed her, I gave Cindy an extra $300. When she saw the money, she couldn't believe it. "I'm so embarrassed. I don't want you to think that I told you everything just to get more money out of you," she told me while looking into my eyes. "I don't think that for 1 second. I know what it's like to struggle. I started from nothing, and I get it. Think of it as a little gift from me," I told Cindy while smiling at her and handing her the money. She eventually took it, and she almost started to cry. I also gave her my business card in case she needed some help. I would be just one phone call away, and that was that. I hopped off the car and went into the park while she drove away. Fast forward, and a few weeks passed from that experience, and I forgot all about it. One evening, I was relaxing at home after a full day of working. I was sitting on my couch watching some reruns on TV when suddenly my phone buzzed. It was a message, but I didn't know the number. Upon opening it, I found it a little odd. "You think you're better than me?" the text said. I was confused for a moment. I didn't know what it actually meant and who was it from. I texted back, "I think you got the wrong number." Then I set my phone on the couch next to me. A few moments passed and I got another message. "Yeah? You don't even know who I am? Up in your high chair, not thinking about us poor people? You should be ashamed of yourself," the text said. Now I was even more confused, so instead of texting back, I decided to call the number. "Hello?" I said. "It's your fault. How could I live like this when I can't even support my kids? And you think your $300 would make a difference? I'm in my apartment with a noose around my neck. That's it. I'm done," the voice said. I stopped for a moment to process all that information, and then I figured it out. "Cindy?" I asked. She said that she's surprised that I remembered her. I told her to don't do anything stupid and that I'll be right over. "Give me your address and I'll come over right now." "Things aren't that bad. Where do you live?" I asked her. She gave me an address and I got there in 20 minutes, but it felt like an hour. I kept thinking of this woman with 2 kids about to commit suicide. I got there and went straight into the apartment, and without even knocking on the door, as I entered, I kept calling her name. "Cindy! Cindy!" A voice came from the kitchen. The apartment was dark, and only a few candles in the kitchen were lighting up the space. "What's going on?" I asked. "Dinner's ready," Cindy told me with a smile on her face. She wasn't in danger at all. She was all dressed up. I turned on the lights, and even the apartment wasn't all that bad. "What are you doing?" I asked her. "I made dinner. Come and sit down," she told me. I asked where her daughters were, and she started laughing. Cindy told me that she didn't have any daughters. "Where did you get this idea? I'm single and I know that you are too," she said while pouring a glass of wine. "Where are you going with this, Cindy?" I asked. "I have researched everything about you. You are rich but alone, and I am the best girl for you. I mean, what's the use of all that money if you don't have anyone to splurge it on?" The entire situation seemed creepy to me. Wow, she is nuts, I thought in my head. So I made an excuse and headed out the door and blocked her number. For the next few weeks, she called and texted me from different numbers. With no sign of her stopping the madness, I had to eventually change my number. Imagine the pain of updating all my friends, family, and clients to my new number. There are a lot of crazy people in the world, and you gotta be careful. There is no other option.